Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I'm your host. And today, finally, I have the one and only Mr. Ron Jones on the show with me. So stay with us. Do me a favor and share this out because you're going to want your friends and family to hear this story. So stay with us. We'll be right back. And we're back. Let me bring Ron on with me here. Ron, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for inviting me. And yeah, it's good that we finally got to connect.
I know. So it was my fault. We had to reschedule a couple of times because I was, yeah. Anyway, there's Jennifer Moran. You know that woman,
Jennifer?
don't you?
Yes, I know Jennifer. Yep.
Yeah, Jen's awesome. So Ron is in the great state of Texas, and I know you have an unbelievable story, and I can't wait for you to share your story and your wisdom and everything with the audience. So Ron, why don't we start with you telling everybody where you were born and raised?
Yeah. So I was actually born in California. I was born in a little town called Merced, California. Good morning, Jennifer. And I lived there till I was 9 years old. Actually, from the time I was born to 9 years old, I actually lived all the way from California to Florida and back to California again. And that was when my mom and dad were together and married. They divorced when I was probably about 4 or 5. And so I was raised by my mother and my grandmother till I was 9 years old. And then my mother married my stepdad, which became my mentor, my friend, my father, everything. You know, I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for him. Wow. That's when we moved to Texas. And so
from California?
From California, yeah.
Okay.
So it was quite a culture shock for me, even at 9 years old. You know, the very first thing that happened was, of course, you know, I started school. I was in the 4th grade, and they did a couple little tests, you know, to find out where I was, you know, as far as education wise.
Yeah.
And they soon found out that since I didn't know my ABCs, and you know, I could write my name out and stuff like that, but that was basically it.
In 4th grade.
In 4th grade, yeah.
Wow.
So they put me back into 3rd grade, and so which turned out to be a great thing. I was able to make it up. I skipped my junior year thanks to my high school sweetheart and my first wife. She helped me through that process.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I found out later on that I had dyslexia. So,
really?
Which was really, yeah, that was the issue. And so, hey, but I'm among a lot of great people, and so there's some very famous people with that. And
yeah.
So that's where I'm from. And I consider myself to be a Texan because I've been here outside of through living in other places because of being in the military or during a job or something.
Yeah. Like that. Yeah. So what part of Texas?
Yeah, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Yeah, I went to high school. It's considered to be the mid cities. So yeah.
Did you look at what Dave?
I love it. I love it.
That is too funny.
That is hilarious.
Wow.
That's great.
Jen says so many rock stars with dyslexia. That's true. I've heard that. That's true. Um, Jen says she's dyslexic with numbers. So you went to high school and all that in the Dallas Fort Worth area.
Yeah.
Which you and I had a conversation on the phone, and you said that they are distinctively different. Dallas and Fort Worth. It's not one city. Although it kind of is now, but so you know, with the where, I mean, did you end up going to college? What happened after high school?
Yeah. So after high school, I knew college wasn't going to be in the cards for me at that time. Anyway, at that time, I didn't think it was ever going to happen. And I went into the military. I went into the Air Force. And while I was in the Air Force, you know, of course, that the dyslexia surfaced, you know, of course, it surfaced many times in my life. But by that time, even though I didn't know exactly what the cause was or what the name was for it, I knew that I had a problem with reading. And so while I was in basic training, I actually failed the test the first time.
Wow.
And so the drill instructor put me with a guy that was a few years older than me. And at the time, you know, I was 18 years old, and I was, and so a 26-year-old is old to you when you're 18.
Yes,
so they put me with him, and he helped me the best he possibly could. I honestly think that I probably still failed it, but they knew that I wanted it so bad, and so I made it. And then I went to tech school. I was a dental lab technician, and
a dental lab technician in the Air Force.
Yeah, making dentures and crown bridges and stuff like that. And actually, that was the first business that I owned after getting out of the military. But while I was in tech school, you know, even though I was having problems with taking the test, my dexterity kind of overrode that, you know. So I was able to actually, because being a dental lab is almost like being an artist. And so there's a lot of sculpturing, even though it's micro, it's still sculpturing. And so I picked it up real quick. So they made it through that. And so, yeah. So going to college, when I got out of the military, I started a dental lab. I actually had three, by the time I was 25, I owned 3 dental labs.
Wow.
It was very successful in that. And actually, you know, I got bored. And so I got into the real estate business, as a lot of people did in the early 80s. And that took off. I mean, but I think anybody could have done it at that time.
Yeah.
You know, because it was a lot different than it is now. It's a little bit more complicated today than it was then.
In real estate, you mean?
Yeah, in real estate.
Yeah.
But I got into it. I ended up having about 400 doors, and I owned a mortgage company. I owned a construction company, and was making, you know, at that time, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month. And for a kid that, you know, was shining shoes when I was in the first grade, you know, for my lunch money, that was a lot of money. And it's still a lot of money.
I was going to say, it's still a lot of money. Wow.
But I thought that, you know, the world was never going to come to an end. And that I I learned a lot of valuable lessons during that time.
Yeah.
I mean, too many to even really talk about. But I think the one thing that I first of all, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have somebody to look up to, somebody to give me direction to help me with that. So it was no wonder that I was going to, you know, by the age of 27, I was a millionaire, but by the age of 30, I was completely broke, driving a $300 El Camino, and
Those,
divorced.
you know what though? Those are some great cars.
Yeah, even though it was rusted out, it's really funny because this is no kidding. So parts would fall off of that car, and I would put them in the back of the El Camino. No kidding.
You're like, this it's still running. This must not be important. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I wish I could say I haven't been there, but I've been there.
So then I decided that and of course I got involved in doing drugs and drinking and thinking that that was going to solve my problems. I had two daughters that I still have today, and that I love more than if you're a father, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
And so I went to treatment. Then
now, were you still married at that point?
I was. We were separated.
Okay.
So yeah, she and I have to say this, and I let anybody know this. The divorce was 100%. In this case, it was 100% my fault, and she wanted to stay together. She did everything she possibly could for us to stay together, and I'll tell you, this is some wisdom for somebody if they're in this situation. Don't ever find yourself in this situation where you think that someone is going to stay there no matter what. And because I was doing all the things that I wanted to do, and always thinking that she would always be there, and when I was ready to come back, until I found some other guy sitting on my couch. But so
that's an unpleasant experience.
yeah, and it's okay now. They're married, and they've been married for a lot of years.
Wow.
Yeah. So
still like the same dude.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, she wanted to be married.
I you know what? I hate it when that happens.
No, I'm happy for her, and in my own special way, and my wife now knows this. I mean, I in only in a way that has to do with our daughters. I still love her in a special way, because she is the mother of my children, and so
That's awesome.
I don't consider her to be an ex-wife. I mean, we're not friends. We don't hang out. We do see each other at my grandkids' birthday parties, and of course, when our daughters got married and stuff like that.
So they don't come over for Easter dinner or Thanksgiving or.
No, that would be a little bit too weird for us.
Who's bringing the yams?
However, I do feel like I probably, and I think they would probably agree. My wife's ex-husband, I'm friends with him, and we every once in a while we'll have a beer together. We don't discuss their previous relationship, but we talk business and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that leading up to the college, when I lost everything, and then I was only in that drug and alcohol period for a very short period of time. When I say short period of time, probably a couple of years. And I did go to treatment. I did realize after a few years that I, uh, I I don't consider myself to be a recovering alcoholic or drug addict, mainly because it's just not a problem or an issue for me. But
Yeah.
I did go to school then to become a counselor, and and that's the greatest thing that ever happened for me. It taught me some life lessons, and I know a lot of people talk about how we don't need college, and that's fine. Yeah, I agree
Yeah.
in a lot of situations. For me, that's where I discovered that I had dyslexia. That's where I discovered, that I wasn't going to be able to manipulate and control and you know the things that I had been doing my entire life. Um, there was I had some really good professors that really helped me and guided me, and I started getting that direction that I needed. So I was a counselor for about 9.5 years. Then kind of wandered around a little bit. I actually went and spent.
Hold it. We went past that way too fast. You were a professor for 9.5 years.
No, I was a counselor.
Oh, counselor. I thought you said professor. I'm
No, no,
sorry.
no, no, no. No, I was a
Okay,
counselor. No,
counselor. So
yeah.
counselor for 9.5 years.
Mhm.
And this is after having, you said you had 400 doors, meaning you owned 400 different rental properties,
Yes, some of them, single family,
multifamily, single family. Right, right,
duplexes, fourplexes.
right, right.
I own blocks of literally blocks of property,
Wow.
and in Fort Worth, and anybody that knows Fort Worth and knows the hospital district, every time I go there with my wife for a doctor's appointment, there's actually a doctor's office on property that I used to own, and
Wow.
it still nauseates me to this day every time I go to that doctor's office, because I'm sitting in that office going, I used to own this property.
Oh my
I wonder
gosh.
how much it's worth today.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
yeah, I
Wow.
lost everything.
So, right. And then you went to school, you became a counselor, you did that for about 9.5 years.
Yeah.
So that's got to put you at almost 40 years old then.
Yes, I have to be a counselor. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So after that, and I have to tell you, in 9.5 years, I burned out 3 times, because I mean it's tough. I mean, it really is tough. It's a tough business. It's tough to listen to people. Uh, and hey, Wes is actually my tech and marketing guy, and he's phenomenal, by the way.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Um, so where were we? Because I
You did counseling for 9.5 years.
oh yeah, I'm burned out 3 times. Yeah.
Oh,
So
you burned out during being a counselor?
yeah. I mean,
Wow.
and I
Yeah.
would go do different things. I mean, like one time, I mean, my daughters laugh about this. I mean, like one time, I bought a tow truck and drove a tow truck for a while.
What?
I know, something completely different, right?
Wow.
Another time, I ran a bingo hall.
Oh, jeez.
Oh,
What?
I
A bingo hall? Is there money in that?
no, not really. but yeah, I just kind of
Oh.
drifted there for a little bit. But here's something that happened. You know, I had somebody in my life that, and I do believe that there are people that are prophetic, that really they do get messages from God. I mean, and they're tuned into it.
Yep.
And I had this friend that came up to me one day, and he said, "Hey, Ron, I've been praying for you. I got this message, and God told me to talk to you about your relationship with your father." And I was 39, almost 40, And he said, you know, you need to have a relationship with your father. And I said, I do have a relationship with my father. And he said, no. He said, you're talking about, he said, there's something else here. And he didn't know that my dad, because I consider my stepdad my dad. He is my dad to me. And that's all I ever talked about. I never even told him that he was my stepdad. And he said, no, there's something else. And I said, well, I do have a stepdad, and I have my father. He lives in Florida. And he said, that's it. He said, you need to have a relationship with him.
With your biological
With
father.
my biological father, yeah.
Wow.
So I get on the phone one day. It took me about 4 or 5 months to get the courage to do that. And I called him up one day, and his name is Ron Alls. Was Ron Alls, so he passed away a few years ago. But I picked up the phone, and this before cell phones. I picked the phone and said, "Hey, Ron, this is your son, Ron. How you doing?" And he said, "I'm doing great. How are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm doing okay." And
I'm doing okay.
Yeah,
driving a tow truck, but other than that,
yeah, I said, "Hey, I'd like to come out and see you." And he said, "Wow, yeah, of course, I'd love for you to come out and see me." And I ended up spending almost 4 months with him, and so we laughed together, we cried together, we talked about things together, and he apologized. He told me the reasons why that he was not a part of my life, which I always thought it was because he didn't love me or he didn't care. And in reality, one of the things, I'm getting emotional thinking about that, but I'm getting a little bit emotional thinking about that, actually.
That's all right.
So the real reason was he said, you know, I saw the relationship that you had with your stepdad. And he said, I didn't want to interrupt that. I didn't want to cause problems. And so, and I have to tell you, during that 4 months, it was incredible. I would never want to do it again. There was a reason why that my mom and dad divorced. He very eccentric guy, lived in a makeshift trailer, and and dogs, cats, chickens coming in and out of the house,
and just in case Ron White is watching, there's nothing wrong with living in a trailer.
That's true.
Right.
Down by the river, underneath the bridge.
Oh my gosh.
So it was definitely a different time, you know, in that, and I had never lived in an environment like that. And he's a very intelligent person. I mean, we were able to have some really intense conversations about life, and he read. He was an avid reader, and he was a hermit. You know, he lived up in the mountains at one time in a van with a dog, and he told some really, cool stories about that. And but after about 4 months, it was time for me to leave.
Now, so I have a question for you, though. So you were in Florida for those 4 months. Where was your family?
You're talking about my daughters?
Yeah.
They were here in Texas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's the other part, that, and my wife and I talk about this now. And as I was telling you, I have a different kind of relationship with my daughters. It's not good, not bad, which in some cases I wished it were one or the other instead of indifferent. but they're living their lives. And so, but I love them still the same.
Yeah.
And they have one of them's divorced now, but has a grandson and one of my granddaughters.
Yeah.
And then my other daughter, my younger daughter, is married to a wonderful guy, and I have two granddaughters and a grandson with him. But yeah, so I was pretty selfish, and yeah, I was selfish before I got divorced. I was selfish after I got divorced, and it was really all about me.
Yeah.
And um, and I know Ken, you'll know what I'm talking about. Just because um, you solve problems in your life, you still sometimes have those activities
Yeah.
and actions that you're still doing.
Yeah.
Like for an alcoholic, even though they're not drinking, that doesn't mean that they're becoming the best person they can possibly be. They're
Right.
still doing some of the same activities. That's the way I was.
Yeah.
And I found myself in a situation where, and I'll for sake of time, I'll condense it down, but um, I had gotten into a relationship with a girl, and we had a son, and I didn't realize he was my son until he was 4. And I actually had to file a paternity suit because she wasn't going to let me sing. And
Oh, wow.
so I filed a paternity suit. Gosh, it was horrible. We went through it. It was just difficult. Talking about difficult times. But I finally gave up my parental rights at some point in that, not because for me, but because of him.
Yeah.
And that had to do with an event that happened over one of the weekends when I had him, and he told me that he hated me, that his mom hated me, that his dad hated me, and
Wow.
that Monday I called my attorney and said, "They win, I give," and so.
Wow.
Then we had this great thing that came along, and for some of the older people, uh, had this thing that was called Myspace. and
I'm still friends with Tom on MySpace.
it's still there, but
I don't know.
and Facebook, and
Yeah.
so I was able to kind of keep up with him,
Mm.
and so I kept at a distance. I kept my relationship with him, and
How old were you back then?
gosh,
The-
when he was born,
yeah. Yeah. Was that around 40?
uh, he was born in '89.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, it was yeah.
Okay.
And then uh, I when he turned right before he turned 18, I went to an attorney and said, "Hey, I know I gave up my parental rights, but is there any way I can get in contact with him?" And what they said is, "Yeah, you can."
Yeah.
But you know, I don't know that it's in your best interest to do that, but yeah, you can. And he said because he's an adult. Adults can meet each other,
Yeah.
and but I have to admit that I didn't have enough courage to actually reach out to him. And in 2009, I had an office in Arlington, which is right between Dallas and Fort Worth. And I was a regional manager and had a sales team,
Yeah.
and had actually gone to Costco to get some supplies. And my dad, or my stepdad, which is my dad to me, calls me and he says, he called me Ronnie. Uh, And he says, Ronnie, are you sitting down? And I was like, nah. And he said, well, I really need for you to sit down. And if you've ever been to Costco, where they have the little tables.
Yeah, yeah.
So I actually sat down, and he said, um, your son has passed away, and he's taken his own life. And I just didn't know. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know. I was in total shock.
Oh my God.
Um, and then when it kind of hit me, all I could do was cry. And so I did that. And
Wow.
so I went home after finding that out. And so
Wow.
the next day after that happened, different people process things different ways, right? And so I went, actually, I got up the next morning and I went to the office like I always did. And I walked in the door, and my admin, which is a phenomenal person, uh, she's like a sister to me, even now, years later. And and she still sends me texts reminding me about stuff. No kidding.
Does she still work for you?
No, but she does.
That's
And
awesome.
so
I need to tell her my birth date.
so I walk in the door, and she says, Ron, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm coming to work. And she said, no, you need to go home. And I said, no, you need to mind your own business, and I'm going to work. And and I was a recruiter, so um, the people that were, and I did group and individual sessions with people back then. And during that time, I feel sorry for the people that were in some of my different presentations that I was giving, because I would go off on these tangents and talk about my son and talk about, and there would be times that I would just start crying during the middle of a presentation.
Yeah.
And my admin, I call her Dacus. Her name's Mary Dacus, and Mary, Dacus would have to walk in and actually take over, and that went on for months. So I feel sorry for some of the people that were having to deal with me.
Wow.
But over the course of time, and I can honestly say that was the turning point for me in my life. Of all the things that I'd been through, they were nothing compared to that event that happened.
And that was 2009, you said?
Yeah, that was in 2009.
I'm so sorry for your loss. Wow.
Thanks. So, but it really changed my life in a positive way, and because it made me realize, and I have a really good friend that says that God has a 2x4 just big enough to get you back in line.
Right.
And I think that was a big 2x4 that I needed. And hey, coach, that's Skip Hall, great guy, by the way, and incredible. You need to have him on your show. Okay. But that 2x4, what the 2x4 upside the head by God, getting me back in line. The way that it changed my life was to realize that the world does not revolve around me. And it was time for me to realize that, we do need to, if we have people in our lives that we have issues with, we need to resolve those issues as quickly as we can, not necessarily for them, but for yourself. And I can't say that I always do that. I can say that I had a a business associate a few years ago that we parted ways and in a very significant way where we were defriending each other on Facebook and
Yeah.
disconnecting ourselves
Yeah.
and there were people in his life that are still in both of our lives that are it was almost like a divorce
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we did not and we still have not talked but he had an event that happened to him I saw it on Facebook and he had an event he almost died and one more time it just brought back to me and so I posted something on Facebook that just said hey um, letting him know that I was praying for him and that I did care about him and because that's more important than money true friendship is
Yeah.
more important than anything
Yep.
and so those are the kinds of things that it helped me to understand. It's helped me to be a better. What my grandchildren call me Pawpaw, and it's made me a better Pawpaw because of that event that happened with my son, and because when I go to events for them, I mean, because I can tell you that yes, I went to some of the events that my children had, and I'd go to their softball games on occasion. On occasion, I didn't go
Right.
to all of them,
Right.
but I took them on trips. I was kind of that dad. And I took them to Europe. I took them to Disney World 3 or 4 times. I did those kinds of things. But even during those events, I wasn't really there and I wasn't really with them. And that's why I don't blame them for uh, uh, their lack of participation in my life now
Yeah.
because I really wasn't there for them. Even when we were together, I wasn't there with them.
Yeah.
And so what that taught me with my son is that when you're with somebody, be with them.
Right. Right.
When I'm at the football game for my grandson Henry, whose birthday is tomorrow, he'll be 14, starting high school next year. Um, he was a lifesaver, by the way, for me. In my book was a collaboration with Vic Johnson. I talk about rocking my grandson, and that's the grandson that I'm talking about. He was a lifesaver during that time for me.
Well, happy early birthday, Henry.
Oh yeah, he's on Facebook too, and I did tag him. Maybe
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah. So yeah, so it's helped me to when I'm at a basketball game with my grandchildren or a football game or just being at the house.
Yeah.
And I am a workaholic. I spend most of my time in this little bubble that I'm in right now,
Yeah.
and but I when yesterday 2 of our grandchildren came over, and I had a lot of work to get done, and so I did my work, but I took about 15 minutes. They were in the next room and they were playing some Xbox or one I don't know what it was, but and they were playing basketball, virtual
Yeah.
basketball. And I went in and sat down for about 10 or 15 minutes. And that's something that I would have never done before that.
Yeah.
And it's just, but it is taking that extra time and being present and being there for them.
Wow. 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 How do I unpack all of that? So your son that passed away, um, you didn't really have a relationship with him at the time, right?
Right.
Wow.
And that created problems too,
Yeah.
because I felt guilty about feeling guilty,
Yeah.
because uh, I didn't have a relationship with him. So when that happened, I still felt the emotions, but yet I didn't feel like I had the right to have those emotions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and I know, it's like telling somebody they shouldn't feel something, or they shouldn't feel that way. Well, it's not somebody's right to tell you that, right?
Right. That's
But I was still feeling that within myself.
sure.
I was
Sure.
still like, you didn't really have a relationship with him, and so I had to undo that. I had to process through that and just say, hey, life is what it is. That's the way that it happened. And
Yeah.
so yeah.
I dated and my wife knows this. I dated a world renowned psychotherapist, and she had a thing on her refrigerator, this little magnetic thing that said, "Guilt is a useless human emotion." And I mean, it really, I think that we are so good at beating ourselves up over things that sometimes we have no control over. I mean, there are circumstances that, so I can tell just from the one or two conversations we've had on the phone, maybe three or four. I mean, you're a good dude. Your heart's in the right place. So, like, so you've gone through a lot. And there's my wife right now.
Awesome.
Um, so you've gone through a lot of stuff. Boy, our stories are, there's a lot of parallels. My Lord have mercy.
There are.
Um,
No. Yeah. Yeah. We talked.
but I know you've also, you've written a book with Kyle Wilson,
Yeah.
who, for those that don't know who Kyle is, he was Jim Rohn's business partner for 18 years. He actually owned Jim Rohn International. Yeah, hold that up again. Let me give you full screen. So life defining moments from bold thought leaders. There it is right there. That's
Yeah.
awesome, man.
Yeah. And anybody that wants a copy of that, they can reach out to me, which is my personal email address is probably best, which
Wow.
is it's rjones08@att.net. Just tell me that you want one of the books. I'll sign it. I'll give you both books, actually. I'll send them to you.
For free?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Why not?
How do you make money giving stuff away for free, Ron? I'm just kidding.
I know you are. Hey, that's the best advertisement you can do.
Oh, that's so
The
funny.
cheapest. But
So the big life-changing moment / event happened in 2009, which really isn't that long ago. It is, but it isn't.
right.
Um, and you, what changed, like, with you? I know that being more present with your grandkids and
Mhm.
all of that, but what do you feel like changed in your business life too? Where did things go for you from there? And we already have somebody that would love to accept your gift, so
Awesome.
I'll put your email address in a banner. Is there a website that we can send them to?
You can send them to, let's see here, what's the best one? You can send them to RL Virtual.
Virtual?
Yes, that's Robert Larry Virtual Recruiting.com. RLVirtualRecruiting.com.
And they can get in touch with you from there as well?
Yeah, you can actually get on my calendar.
Is that it right there? RL Virtual Recruit. Did I spell it wrong? I think I spelled it wrong. No?
Yeah, you left out the I.
Recruit. Oh, RUI. I knew I spelled it wrong. I'll get it.
That's
Um, And I can't use
Well,
dyslexia as a
well,
reason.
while you're typing, I'll answer your question.
Yeah.
Yes, that's good. So that's it. So how it's changed in my business, I think you would probably you'd almost have to ask them. But right now, of course we're a 100% virtual company. We love being virtual. I actually had presidents of insurance companies calling me right after the pandemic because I had gone virtual um, since 2016.
Yeah.
So when this happened, this kind of rocked their world. I mean, this changed, and it changed the insurance industry. It changed a lot of industries, but it
Yeah.
definitely changed the insurance industry. Because people weren't able to go into people's homes. There were people that, if it was business to business, where they weren't able to go into the businesses, or if they were able to go into the businesses, the people were working virtually, and so they had to look for new models. And but so we've been virtual. I actually have two people that work with me. I have Joe Hausman, that's up in South Dakota, Sioux Falls, South Dakota,
Mhm.
and she's incredible to work with. And then of course Wes came on a little bit earlier,
Yeah.
and he's the marketing and tech guru. I mean, he truly is. He's phenomenal at
Mhm.
what he does. And you know, I would hope that they would say that most of the time, uh, I'm sure I have my moments, but I think even in difficult times, in difficult situations, I do everything in my power to make sure that I'm upholding people's integrity, uh, uh, that they feel like that they um, are worth something. And
Right.
so that's different for me. I mean, I'll tell you a really, really quick story here to contrast what I'm talking about. So when I had made my first million when I was in my 20s,
Yeah.
I took my dad with me, my stepdad, but I took my dad with me to look at limousines. And I didn't need a limousine.
Limousine for what?
I know. I thought
To drive you around?
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I
You
told I
need to
told you
go.
I told you I was an egomaniac. It was horrible. And
But I can so relate to that. Oh my gosh. I
so
still want a limo.
so so I took my dad with me, and my dad pulled me aside and he said, "Hey Ronnie, why are you doing this?" He said, "Why don't you take some of that money that you're making and put it back?" He said, "Because things aren't necessarily going to be the way that things are right now."
Yeah.
And and I was like, yeah, whatever, and I'm not very proud of what I'm about to say. In fact, but I'm trying to prove a point here.
Yeah.
And I was in a meeting a couple days later with some of my partners, and I was laughing at my dad, and I was saying, here's a guy, he's an aircraft mechanic, he's never done anything except for be a mechanic, and he's telling me how to run my business. And that's just the kind of person that I was. And so to go from that
Yeah.
to now, I think, when I die, I hope that people see me for who I am now and not what I was then.
Yeah.
And so the people that I work with, it definitely affects my business. I think I'm a kinder, more gentle person that I can possibly be. My wife might tell you a little bit different, but
Right.
on occasion,
Those wives and the truth.
I know I still have my moments. I'm definitely not a saint. I can assure you of that.
You know, you remind me though of a client of mine has this. I'll never forget this. A former client of mine has this sign that was hanging in his office. This dentist, it was hanging in his private office, and it said, "You're either living a life of humility or you're headed for one."
Ooh,
Is that powerful, man, or what?
power.
Right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because God has and you can call it God or you can just call it life, but arrogance and egomaniacism is not sustainable like long term.
yeah.
I'm not judging. I've been there. I trust me. I know. I've been limo shopping too, so
Yeah, right, right.
I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you know, and I want to address something that you said about that psychotherapist that you dated,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and hers that she had. I think one of the most evil emotions uh, that there is truly indifference. You know, so you know you can treat people bad or you can treat people well,
Yeah.
but sometimes and most of the time, if you really want to hurt somebody, just be indifferent.
That's right.
And hopefully I'm that. You know, I want to be passionate about what it is that I do and the people that I work with and give them their just credit and the things that they do very well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow. Wow. So when did you decide to write these books?
Yeah. So I've got one more book that'll be coming out in a few months. And yeah, Kyle doesn't know that yet, but he might
He's
now.
probably watching.
He's probably watching.
Surprise.
Yeah. So it's been written for a while now. And it's called Discover the Superhero Within. Your superhero within. And it discusses a lot of these things. It's not an autobiography. It's more of what I would consider to be a help book for people. But we have that book, and then yes, I've been in life defining moments with some incredible people. By the way, I mean truly incredible people. You know, Nui Scruggs, 7-time Emmy-winning sports anchor. Another person is very special to me. He passed away. Bob Helms. He was the godfather of real estate, and he's in this book, which is a real cool story. I just want to share about that. I was sitting next to him, Bob Helms, and probably the last time that I saw him, and I had given him the unedited version of my book, and he sat next to me and cried, and he said, "Ron, you've got to get this book out." And that's the last thing that Bob said to me. So
wow,
that means a whole lot. But you know, of course, Kyle tells his story in here. James Melanchek's in here. Another really good friend of mine, and I'll be totally. I'm totally indebted to this guy. From a business standpoint, I wouldn't be where I am today without many of the people that I've already mentioned. But one of them that's been an incredible inspiration and a great mentor is Bob Crockett, and he's in this book as Robert Crockett. Colonel Tim Cole. I don't know if you've had him on your show yet. He was actually one of the people for Obama's inauguration to organize the inauguration. Just an incredible guy. So he's in this book and many, many others. And if I missed you, I'm sorry. But
there's a lot.
Yeah. So and the other one which is with Vic Johnson, has some incredible people in it.
Hold that up again. Rest if you must, but don't. That's one of my favorite poems, by the way.
Isn't it incredible?
It's one of my it saw me through, and I think I originally heard it from Zig Ziglar, maybe, but yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, and it's got some incredible stories, and both of them have incredible stories. That's why I really like being in books,
Yeah.
and I well, I won't say that, but um, it is incredible to be in books with some just phenomenal people,
Yeah.
uh, and uh, Vic Johnson is a master at that, and of course we know that Kyle Wilson is
Big
the
time.
the ultimate in
Big time.
making sure to give you social proof and give you presence.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, I definitely wouldn't be here without Kyle. Kyle actually, after he came out of his non-compete after selling his company General International, I was uh, we'd have to ask him, but I think I was his third or fourth client after coming out of his.
Wow.
So he's been a total,
Kyle's amazing.
yeah,
Like people
completely
don't.
changed my life. Completely
What's
changed my life.
what's that?
He's completely changed my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Kyle's an amazing human being.
Mhm.
So you've got another book coming out in a few months, and everybody can go to rlvirtualrecruiting.com, and I'm going to assume that all of your social media links are on there.
Probably not like they're supposed to be,
but for people to follow you, and you're on Facebook. We're friends on Facebook. Are you on Instagram?
Yep.
Okay. So, man, what a powerful story, and there's so much more that you have left to do.
No thanks.
So much more you have left to do. I'm so grateful for you, man. Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience?
Well,
I do have a couple of questions for you.
okay. Well, I think unless we go over on time,
I don't. There's no time limit. It's my show and it's the internet. We'll go all day if we want.
All right, cool. All right, I like it. So that we're not go ahead and shoot. Ask a question.
So I always ask a couple of questions. This one's gonna be tough, man, on you. And I don't mean it's, but I always ask this question.
Good.
A friend of mine runs the Ohio suicide hotline for the whole state. And during the pandemic, especially, man, their numbers skyrocketed with phone calls and all of that. And, I think that we've all been there. I remember, Ron, my wife and I opened up our first office back. We met in 2008. We opened up our first office, and I had a handful of employees, and one day this big old boy that worked for me comes walking in. I'm on a phone call, and he says, "Hey, boss, there's some dude out in the parking lot looking in the windows of your SUV." And I'm like, "I'm on the phone. Tell him get the hell out of here, man. Like, kick his ass. I would, like, you bigger than me, man. What are you telling me?" He's like, "He's got it blocked with his tow truck." I'm like, "Oh God, no." So I go out, and I don't know if you've ever tried to talk a repo man out of repo in your car, but it's never effective. And at least it wasn't this time. And so here I am standing in the parking lot with my employees at my new office, watching my car get towed away. And it was the most humiliating moment of my life. And there was a moment I stood there thinking, what's the point of going on? What is the point of like, this is crazy. The pain I was feeling in that moment was unbearable. So my question is, for those people who may be watching this, Ron, that feel like they've tried everything, they've given everything that they know how to give, and there's no hope left for them. What do you say to them to help them? Because you and I know that's temporary, but what do you say to them to get them to the next moment?
Yeah, that is a tough question. Which, by the way, I haven't ever had a car repoed, but I did take a Mercedes back to the Mercedes dealership that actually I had leased, and I went in and handed them the keys, and they said, um, can I help you? And I said, yeah, I'm dropping this off. And they're like, well, the service department's over here. I go, no, you don't understand. I'm dropping it off.
Right.
I mean, I couldn't even afford to have it serviced. So
Right.
I'm like, no, I'm dropping it off. I'm leaving it with you. And they go, you can't do that. And I go, watch me.
Right.
And it was funny watching this guy with my keys,
Yeah.
trying to hand them to me and put them in one of my pockets or whatever. Yeah. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And so that's as close up to repo. But no, I think that when you're somebody, if they were to come to me and say, hey, this is it, because I have found myself, and I know we don't have a whole lot of time to go into this, but I do have bouts of depression and anxiety at times, and there was a time not too long ago that my wife and I were in the car, and she and we were having a discussion. It really wasn't an argument, but it was a discussion. So I guess it was a cross between a discussion and an argument, I guess, if you want to put it that way. But anyway, I was telling her, and finally I just said, stop and listen to me for just a second. I said, understand, I'm at a place right now that and understand things are going great in my life, by the way.
Yeah.
But I said, there's not very many things right now at this very moment that's keeping me alive. And I said, and I was a little bit mean, and I did have to go back and apologize to her and said, you're not keeping me alive. My kids aren't keeping me alive. Nobody's keeping me alive right now, except the legacy that I would leave to my grandchildren. I know that it would affect their lives. And because I know how they feel about me, or at least I know how I feel about them.
Yeah.
And I said, they're what's keeping me alive right now. And so I guess I would tell somebody that was thinking about something like that. And by the way, I always wear this because
hold that up again.
Yeah. So that's my trigger finger. Actually, I shoot a gun left-handed, but still that's my trigger finger.
Yeah.
And that's because, every minute of the day, 2 veterans commit suicide. And so that's a tremendous tragedy. And so we all have something to give.
Yeah.
So, and it's really hard when you're going through something and you're having those thoughts. Again, it's almost like trying to tell somebody how to feel. You can't do that. But just letting them know, yeah, this is temporary. It will change. I assure you, it will change.
Yeah. Yep.
And that change, sometimes it's going to get a little bit worse.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you do the things in life that we're designed to do, you will come out of it.
I totally agree. I if there was a handbook on how to like really screw everything up in life, I could have written most of that. Like I like everything. And but yet I know that if you just keep showing up, eventually things change.
Yeah.
And I've been there, man. I bought the t-shirt, I wore it out, bought another t-shirt, wore that one out. I've been there. So
Yeah.
this too shall pass, man. That's one of my favorite sayings too.
Mhm.
So let me ask you this. Final question is, what do you think, in your opinion, stops people, it's a two-part thing, stops people from achieving real financial success
Mhm.
and real freedom and happiness in life? And Ron, I do believe those two things are related because I've been broke and I've been wealthy, and wealthy is better.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, and you're absolutely right, because I have been without
Yeah.
and miserable,
Yeah.
and I've had money and been miserable.
Yeah.
But I have to admit that any during the times that I've had money and abundance, um, yeah, it definitely beats that other way
Yep.
by a long shot.
Yeah.
But for people to have, and wealth means different things to different people, because it's not just money, but it does take work. I mean, you have to have a good work ethic. I think the thing that's helped me to be successful up to this point is, and I don't mind saying, in a couple of months I'll be 64 years old. Hopefully, I don't look that old, but I am. And I can say that literally I've worked my entire life,
Yeah.
and it's that work ethic that, regardless of what, just like, me showing up the next day
Yeah.
after my son, took his life. And I'm not saying that that's the best thing. That was the best thing for me to do, because it probably wasn't. But
It is.
you
Yeah.
mentioned it a moment ago. You got to show up. I mean, and you have to participate. You have to create your value. And uh, if you're receiving a paycheck from somebody, give extra. If they ask you to do something, give more.
Yeah.
If you're working on a project, do extra, do more,
Yeah.
uh, do just a little bit more than what you think somebody else is going to do.
Yeah.
And if you continue to do that, you eventually, I mean, the way the universe works, eventually it's going to catch up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
good things will happen if you continually put your all into something, or
Amen.
or somebody.
Amen. Amen. I agree. Ron, you're an amazing human being, and I'm so grateful to, number one, call you a friend. Number two, to have had you on the show, and you sharing your heart and passion and transparency. And I guarantee that you've helped some people today on that have watched, and those that watch the replay, or if you're currently watching, share this out so that Ron's message of getting his rear end kicked in life, but yet still coming out with a smile
Yeah.
and being a good person, man. I really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
I am humbled and honored. I mean, it means a whole lot, because I know you've had You have incredible people on your show.
And I just had another one. You.
Oh, well,
So
thank you.
thank
Thanks.
you. Yeah.
You bet.
Thank you. And so everybody that has watched, thank you so much for being here. Please share this out. And Ron, thank you again so much. I appreciate it. Everything. It's been amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
And everybody have an awesome day, and we will see you tomorrow. Make sure you go to rlvirtualrecruiting.com. Ron offered to send you, hold your books up again, Ron. Ron offered to send you both copies for free, both copies of that book, those books. So, and I have them and they're phenomenal. So make sure you reach out to him and take him up on that. Ron, you're awesome. Thank you. Everybody have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.